Somebody once called 911 because the car ahead of them was going the speed limit. Another person filed an insurance claim against a squirrel. And one guy actually mailed his city an invoice for 4 lost minutes of commute time. These are 69 of the most ridiculous, unhinged, and painfully real driver complaints ever recorded in America. Every single one was filed by someone who meant it. 1. A woman in Florida called 911 3 separate times in 1 hour because the car ahead of her was driving too slowly. The offending speed? Exactly the posted limit. When an officer finally pulled her over instead, she demanded he at least give the other driver a warning for, and these are her words, being inconsiderate to people with places to be. The cop noted in his report that her minivan had a bumper sticker that read, "Patience is a virtue. You cannot make this stuff up." 2. So, there was this guy in Texas who filed a formal complaint with his city's transportation department over a traffic light that he claimed turned red too quickly. He timed it with his phone and everything, ran his own little investigation. The city reviewed the signal, found it was working perfectly, and mailed him a polite letter explaining how traffic lights function. His response? Filing a second complaint. About the tone of the letter. 3. Picture this. You are a 911 dispatcher in Arizona. The phone rings. A man is reporting property damage. The suspect? A pigeon. This guy genuinely wanted to file an official report because a bird pooped on his windshield at a red light. When asked to describe the suspect, he said it was gray, about 6 inches tall, and was last seen heading east. The responding officer had to sit in his cruiser for 5 full minutes just to pull himself together before walking over. 4. Someone in Nevada complained to the DMV that another driver's personalized license plate was offensive to morning people. The plate spelled out the letters NOTAMPM, which stood for not a morning person. That is it. The DMV reviewed the complaint, determined the plate violated no guidelines, and closed the case. The complainant appealed. Twice. Both times with handwritten letters that included underlined passages and exclamation points on every other sentence. 5. Back in 2018, a woman in Georgia wrote a 4-page letter to her local school district demanding they reduce the number of school bus stops on her commute. Her reason? All that stopping was making her 7 minutes late to work. Not 7 hours, 7 minutes. The district sent back a single paragraph thanking her for the feedback and attached a copy of federal school bus safety regulations. She never responded. 6. Here is one that sounds fake but is painfully real. A man in Colorado called the non-emergency line because a car at the grocery store parked too close to his. Both vehicles were completely within the lines. He wanted the other car towed. When the dispatcher said no, he asked if an officer could at least leave a strongly worded note on the windshield. The answer to that was also no. 7. In Kentucky, a driver complained to police that another motorist waved at him aggressively. The other driver had simply raised his hand off the steering wheel in a friendly hello. Officers tracked down the accused aggressive waver. He was a 74-year-old retired pastor who, by all accounts, waves at every single person he sees. Everyone. The complaint was not pursued. 8. Road rage complaints are common. This one is not. A woman in South Carolina called police to report that another driver had given her a thumbs down. Not the middle finger. A thumbs down. She said it made her feel judged and wanted it documented. The officer wrote it up because technically he had to. And somewhere in that precinct there is a file that reads, "Suspect gave disapproving thumb gesture while heading northbound." 9. A man in Minnesota sent an actual invoice to City Hall after a detour added 4 minutes to his commute. 4 minutes. He calculated the total lost time over the 6-week construction period, multiplied it by his hourly wage, and billed the city just under $90. The city never responded, which honestly might be the loudest answer they could have given. 10. One driver rear-ended a parked car in Ohio and then tried to sue the owner for parking in a spot that was, his words, too close to the road. The car was in a legal, clearly marked space. The judge threw it out in under 3 minutes. That might genuinely be a speed record for the fastest case dismissal in that county. 11. There is a special kind of confidence it takes to call the cops on a squirrel, but a man in Missouri had it. He swerved to avoid one, hit a mailbox, and wanted the squirrel held accountable. When the officer explained that wildlife cannot be charged with traffic violations, the man asked for a case number for his insurance claim. He got one. Somewhere in Missouri, there is an official police report listing a squirrel as the primary suspect in a traffic incident. 12. A couple in South Carolina once petitioned their town council to remove speed bumps from their neighborhood because the bumps were, and they were dead serious, too bumpy. Their coffee kept spilling on the morning drive. Here is the beautiful part. Those speed bumps were installed 2 years earlier because this exact same couple had complained about cars speeding through their street. The council just stared at them. 13. We all have that one neighbor. In Indiana, a man showed up to his HOA meeting with paint swatches because a neighbor's car was the wrong shade of blue. Not the wrong color. The wrong shade. The board looked at his samples, admitted they could not tell the difference, and moved on. He came back the next month with the same swatches and a desk lamp for better lighting. 14. In Louisiana, a driver received a parking ticket and mailed the city a handwritten 12-page appeal, comparing the parking officer to various historical tyrants. Each page escalated. By page 8, he was quoting the Declaration of Independence. The city clerk who processed it said it was the single most entertaining document she had read in 30 years on the job. The $35 ticket was upheld. 15. How many times can one person call about a cow? In Alabama, the answer is 6. A driver spotted a cow near the road, called it in, and then called back 5 more times with updates. The cow moved east. It is looking at traffic now. I think it is judging me. By the 5th call, dispatch told him to stop monitoring the cow. He called a 6th time to complain about the dispatcher's attitude. 16. Uber drivers deal with a lot, but one rider in Phoenix left a complaint saying the driver's music was too happy for a Monday morning. Not too loud, too happy. She gave him 1 star and wrote that nobody should be forced to listen to upbeat music before 9 in the morning because it felt, and this is a direct quote, emotionally aggressive. The driver's playlist, classic Motown. 17. A woman in Virginia brought her 6-day-old car back to the dealership because she could not stand the sound of the turn signal. Nothing was broken. The clicking just annoyed her. She had driven a total of 11 miles. The dealer refused the return, so she left a 1,700-word 1-star review that somehow included a paragraph about her childhood and her relationship with her mother. 18. A man in Texas went through a fast food drive-thru and then called corporate to file a complaint because the employee handed him his bag through the window with their left hand. He called it disrespectful and awkward since he had to reach across his body to grab it. He wanted a formal apology and a coupon. Corporate sent him a form letter. He wrote back saying the apology also felt left-handed. 19. A man in New Jersey got a flat tire, called a tow truck, and then filed a formal complaint against the company. Not because they were late, not because they damaged his car, because the driver did not offer him a bottle of water. He wanted compensation for dehydration and emotional distress during a 22-minute wait on a mild 68-degree afternoon. The tow company did not respond, probably because they were too dehydrated. 20. This one is almost poetic. A guy in Nevada took his car to a self-service wash, selected the highest pressure setting, held the wand about 2 inches from the paint, and blasted the same panel for nearly 9 minutes straight. Then he filed a complaint saying the car wash destroyed his finish. The owner showed him the instructions posted right on the wall. The man said he does not read signs while washing because, and he meant this, that is a distraction, and someone could get hurt. 21. In 2020, a driver in Wisconsin called the police to report a traffic jam. Not an accident, not a road hazard, just regular bumper-to-bumper congestion during rush hour. He wanted someone dispatched to fix it. The officer on the phone paused for a long time before explaining that traffic is not, in fact, a police matter. The man hung up and called back 10 minutes later to report that the jam had gotten worse. 22. You know how some people treat their cars like their children? A woman in California took that to another level by filing a noise complaint against a nearby construction site because the jackhammering was stressing out her vehicle. She claimed the vibrations were loosening internal components. A mechanic inspected the car and found absolutely nothing wrong. She disputed his findings and brought in a second mechanic. Same result. 23. A man in Pennsylvania sent a 7-page letter to his state representative demanding a law that would ban bumper stickers he personally found annoying. Not offensive, not obscene, just annoying. His list of unacceptable stickers included "My kid is an honor student," anything involving stick figure families, and any reference to running marathons. The letter ended with, "I look forward to your swift action on this matter." 24. Rental car complaints are a goldmine. One woman in Miami returned a rental and demanded a full refund because the car was white. She said nobody told her it would be white. The confirmation email listed the car as a mid-size sedan, which it was. She argued that white cars attract too much heat and that the company should have warned her since she was visiting Florida. In July, where every car is hot regardless of color. 25. One morning in Texas, a man walked into a police station holding a Ziploc bag full of gravel. He dumped it on the counter and said it had flown off a truck and chipped his windshield 3 weeks earlier. He had no license plate number, no description of the truck, no dash cam footage, just a bag of rocks he collected from the road a full 21 days after the incident. He wanted justice. He did not get it. 26. Short and sweet on this one. A driver in Idaho complained to the city that a stop sign near his house was an ugly shade of red. Not missing, not obscured, not in the wrong spot, just aesthetically displeasing. The city informed him that stop sign colors are regulated by the federal government. He said he understood and asked if they could at least plant some flowers around the base to make it more attractive. 27. In Massachusetts, a woman demanded a refund from a parking garage because she got lost inside it for 40 minutes. The garage had 3 levels and clearly marked directional arrows on every wall and floor. She insisted the layout was deliberately confusing and threatened to sue for emotional trauma. The garage manager offered to walk her to her car next time. She said that was condescending. So basically, there was no winning with this person. 28. A Lyft passenger in Chicago rated his driver 1 star and wrote a 2-paragraph complaint because the driver sneezed during the ride. Once. One single sneeze. The passenger claimed it was unsanitary and that the driver should have warned him beforehand so he could have opened the window. The driver had a perfect 5-star rating across over 2,000 trips, until this guy and his sneeze policy came along. 29. Every winter, insurance companies brace themselves. But nothing prepared one adjuster in Michigan for a man who filed a claim saying deer deliberately targeted his car. Not that a deer ran into the road. He believed the deer saw his specific vehicle and chose to hit it. He had been in 3 deer-related incidents in 2 years and was convinced it was personal. The adjuster had to process the claim with a straight face. 30. A driver in Connecticut went to the DMV to complain that her license photo made her look too old. She was 67. She wanted a retake with better lighting and asked if she could bring her own ring light. The DMV said no. She argued that the government was violating her right to a flattering photo. There is no such right, for the record, but she seemed very confident that there was. 31. Not all complaints are verbal. A man in Arizona printed out a full PowerPoint presentation, bound it in a leather folder, and hand-delivered it to his city council. The subject? A speed bump on his street that he believed was 1.5 inches too tall. The presentation included graphs, measurements, and a cost-benefit analysis. The council thanked him for his thoroughness and changed absolutely nothing. 32. Here is what happens when entitlement meets a parking meter. A woman in San Francisco got a ticket for an expired meter and argued that she should be exempt because she was supporting local businesses. She had been inside a boutique for 3 hours. The meter allowed 2. Her appeal letter included receipts from the boutique as evidence of her economic contribution. The city was unmoved by her $600 handbag purchase. 33. A driver in Tennessee called Highway Patrol to report that a billboard was too distracting. The billboard was a standard ad for a personal injury lawyer. Nothing flashy, no lights, no animation, just a man in a suit pointing at the camera. The caller said the lawyer's eyes followed him as he drove past and that it was a safety hazard. Patrol noted the complaint and took no action whatsoever. 34. In Illinois, a man tried to file a police report against his GPS. His navigation system had routed him down a dead-end road, and he wanted the software company held responsible for his wasted 14 minutes. The officer explained that filing a report against an app was not something they could do. The man asked what he was supposed to do then. The officer suggested using a map. The conversation ended there. 35. Insurance fraud is one thing. Insurance delusion is another. A woman in Florida filed a claim for sun damage to her dashboard after parking outside for one afternoon. 1. She wanted the entire dash replaced under her comprehensive coverage. The adjuster pointed out that sun exposure over a single afternoon does not cause material degradation. She forwarded him an article about ultraviolet radiation as if that settled it. 36. A woman in California called the police because the driver next to her at a red light was singing along to his radio with the windows down. Not screaming, not honking, singing. She said it was distracting and aggressively off-key and wanted it treated as a noise violation. The officer asked what song it was. She said she had no idea, but that was beside the point. It was not, in fact, beside the point. No citation was issued. 37. Tow truck drama never disappoints. A man in Ohio had his car towed from a fire lane and then showed up at the impound lot screaming that he had only been parked there for a second. Security footage showed the car sitting in the fire lane for 2 hours and 11 minutes. When confronted with the timestamp, he said the camera must have been wrong. It was not wrong. He paid the fee. 38. Think your commute is bad? A woman in New Mexico filed a formal grievance with her county because the sunrise was in her eyes every morning on her drive to work. She wanted the county to install sunshades along a 2-mile stretch of highway. When told that blocking the sun was not a municipal service, she suggested they at least shift her work zone to a west-facing route. She did not work for the county. 39. A man in Virginia complained to a toll plaza that the attendant did not say thank you after he paid. He wrote in to say the interaction felt transactional. It was literally a transaction. The toll authority responded with a form letter. He wrote back saying the form letter also felt impersonal. At some point, you have to wonder if this man has ever interacted with another human before. 40. People love complaining about car washes. A woman in Utah went through an automatic wash and then filed a complaint because there were still water spots on her car. The wash she selected? The basic $3 exterior rinse. Not the deluxe, not the premium. The one that is essentially a glorified garden hose on a timer. She wanted the full $22 package results for $3. That is not how anything works. 41. During a traffic stop in North Carolina, a man was pulled over for going 53 in a 35 zone. Instead of accepting the ticket, he filed a counter-complaint against the officer for sneaking up on him. He argued that the patrol car was too well hidden behind a tree and that constituted entrapment. His lawyer, assuming he even called one, probably had a very short conversation with him about what entrapment actually means. 42. A Lyft driver in Atlanta got a 1-star review because his car smelled too clean. The passenger wrote that the overwhelming scent of air freshener gave her a headache and that a car should smell neutral. The driver had cleaned his car that morning specifically to maintain high ratings, so he got punished for trying too hard. Welcome to the gig economy. 43. A man in Wisconsin sent a formal letter to his state's Department of Transportation arguing that road signs were too bossy. His specific problem was with the tone of commands like stop, yield, and do not enter. He proposed friendlier alternatives such as please pause and kindly let others go first. He even mocked up sample designs. The department wrote back a single sentence thanking him for his input and confirming the current signage would remain unchanged. 44. There is a special corner of absurdity reserved for HOA parking disputes. A woman in Texas received a violation notice because her car was parked facing the wrong direction on her own driveway. Not blocking anything, not on the grass, just nose out instead of nose in. She fought it for 3 months, attended 2 board meetings, and ended up paying the fine anyway because her HOA bylaws actually did specify parking orientation, which is its own kind of insanity. 45. A man in Indiana called his insurance company to report that his car had been emotionally totaled, meaning it still ran fine, but after a minor fender bender, he no longer felt safe in it. He wanted a full payout for a new vehicle. The claims adjuster explained that emotional attachment is not a covered category. He asked to speak to a manager. The manager said the same thing, but slower. 46. Quick one. A woman in Delaware called the cops because someone left a flyer under her windshield wiper at a grocery store. She described it as unauthorized contact with her vehicle. The flyer was an ad for a local pizza place. Officers declined to investigate. The pizza place, for what it is worth, has excellent reviews. 47. In West Virginia, a driver showed up at a body shop with a tiny scratch on his bumper and demanded the shop file a police report on his behalf. The scratch was about 2 inches long and barely visible. He was convinced someone had keyed his car with surgical precision in a targeted attack. The body shop owner looked at it and said it was probably from a shopping cart. The man rejected this theory on principle. 48. A woman in California complained to Caltrans that the freeway was too straight. She said long, straight stretches of highway made her drowsy, and that the state should add curves for driver engagement. Caltrans, a department that has heard just about everything, reportedly had no template response for this particular suggestion. Probably because nobody in the history of road design has ever asked for less efficiency. 49. Here is one from the great state of Florida, because of course. A man complained to his insurance company that a palm frond fell on his car during a storm and left a mark on the roof. When the adjuster came out, the mark was a single leaf stain about the size of a quarter. The man wanted a full roof repaint. The adjuster offered to wipe it off with a wet cloth. It came off immediately, claim denied. 50. Halfway through, and somehow these keep getting better. A man in Montana called road maintenance to complain that a pothole on his street had been fixed. Not that it still existed, that it had been repaired. He said the patch was slightly higher than the surrounding pavement, and now his car made a small bump when he drove over it. He preferred the pothole. Let that sink in. He literally preferred the hole in the ground. 51. A couple in Arizona tried to sue a drive-through restaurant because the window was on the wrong side. They drove a car with right-hand drive, imported from Japan, and argued the restaurant should accommodate them with a second window. The restaurant manager pointed out that approximately 99% of cars in America are left-hand drive. The couple called that statistic discriminatory. 52. A man in Oklahoma called a tow truck to move his car from one end of his driveway to the other after a snowstorm because he did not feel like shoveling the full length. When the driver showed up and saw the distance was about 20 feet, he refused the job. The man filed a formal complaint saying the service was advertised as anytime, anywhere, and that his driveway absolutely counted as anywhere. The tow company waived his cancellation fee just to never hear from him again. 53. A driver in Arkansas pulled into a gas station and asked to speak to the manager because the price displayed on the road sign was in a font he could not read while driving past. It was the same font every gas station in America uses. He said he nearly missed the turn because he was squinting too hard and called it a safety hazard. The manager suggested he might need glasses. The man suggested a bigger font. Neither one took the other's advice. 54. This one is almost impressive. A driver in North Dakota slid off an icy road in January and filed a formal complaint against the state for failing to prevent winter. His argument was that salt trucks should have pre-treated the road before the storm. The storm arrived at 3 in the morning and dropped 6 inches of snow in 2 hours. But sure, the state should have just stopped winter from happening. 55. A man in Texas complained to a valet service that his seat had been adjusted when he got his car back. Not scratched, not dented. The seat was moved. The valet was 5'4". The owner was 6'3". The seat had to be moved so the valet could reach the pedals and, not crash. The man wanted compensation for the inconvenience of readjusting his seat, which takes about 4 seconds. 56. At a car rental counter in Las Vegas, a woman refused to accept a vehicle because the odometer read 13,000 miles and 13 was her unlucky number. She demanded a different car. The agent offered her one with 15,000 miles. She said that was fine. Same make, same model, same color, just 2,000 more miles of wear. But the number was better, and apparently that is what matters. 57. In New Hampshire, a driver called town hall to complain that a crosswalk was in the wrong place. It was directly in front of a school. He said it forced him to slow down every morning and asked if it could be relocated to a less trafficked area. The town politely declined to move a crosswalk away from the building full of children. He followed up in writing to suggest the school itself be moved. 58. A woman in Wyoming filed a claim with her insurance after backing into her own mailbox. That part is not unusual. What made it memorable is that she listed the mailbox as an unmarked stationary hazard on her claim form. It had been in the same spot for 9 years. She had personally picked it out at a hardware store. The adjuster asked if the mailbox had always been there. She said yes, but that it blended in. 59. Short but legendary. A man in Georgia walked into a police station and asked to press charges against a pothole for assault. Not the city for neglecting the road, the pothole itself. The officer told him potholes are not legal entities. He said he understood that, paused for a moment, and then asked if he could at least get the pothole's location on record for future victims. He could, and he did. 60. A driver in Michigan filed a complaint with his dealership because his new car did not have that new car smell. The car was 3 days old. It technically still was new. He claimed the scent had faded prematurely and wanted it professionally restored. The dealership offered him an air freshener. He said that was not the same thing, and honestly, he might have a point there, but it still was not a valid warranty claim. 61. In New York, a man received a red light camera ticket and mailed in a photo of cash instead of actual payment. His logic? The ticket was sent as a photo of his car, so he was sending a photo of the money. The city was not amused and sent him a real bill with a late fee. He paid it, eventually. 62. A woman in Nebraska called AAA 7 times in 1 year for the same issue, a dead battery. Not because her car was faulty, but because she kept leaving her headlights on overnight. Every single time. On the 7th call, the dispatcher gently suggested she put a sticky note on her dashboard as a reminder. She filed a complaint about the suggestion, calling it patronizing. The sticky note would have worked, though. 63. A couple in Alabama filed a grievance against their city because a newly installed roundabout confused them. Their complaint stated, and this was in writing, that they had driven around it 4 full times before figuring out how to exit. They wanted a stop sign instead. The city explained that the roundabout was specifically designed to improve traffic flow. The couple said they preferred the old intersection, where they could just sit and wait. 64. In Oregon, a driver reported that his toll transponder beeped too aggressively when he passed through the booth. Not that he was overcharged, not that it malfunctioned. The beep was too harsh. He described it as accusatory. He wanted the tone softened to something more welcoming. The toll authorities said they would take his feedback into consideration. They did not take his feedback into consideration. 65. A woman in Texas left a 1-star review for a highway rest stop because the parking spaces were angled instead of straight. She wrote that the angle forced her to turn her steering wheel an uncomfortable amount and that the state should redesign the entire lot. The review was 4 paragraphs long and included a photo of a hand-drawn diagram she made showing her preferred layout. The rest stop, for context, is run by the state and has never responded to a single online review. 66. A woman in Colorado called her city council to complain that a road near her house was too curvy. Not unsafe, just curvy. She said it made her car sick on her own commute and asked the city to straighten it out. The road followed the natural terrain of a hillside. Straightening it would have required removing part of the hill. The estimated cost, she was told? Somewhere in the neighborhood of $14 million. She asked if there was a payment plan. 67. At a car dealership in Maryland, a man returned for his 3rd visit in a week to complain about a rattling sound in his dashboard. The technicians had checked everything twice and found nothing. On the 3rd visit, they pulled the dash apart completely and found a single breath mint rolling around inside a vent. The man had dropped it through the defrost slot without realizing it. He blamed the car's design. The technicians just reassembled the dash in silence. 68. A man in New Jersey tried to dispute a speeding ticket by claiming his speedometer was in kilometers. His car was a domestic model sold exclusively in the United States with the speedometer clearly reading in miles per hour. When the judge asked him to explain, he doubled down and said he had switched it mentally to metric. The judge did not accept the mental conversion defense. Nobody in the courtroom was surprised. 69. And finally, the complaint that might top them all. A woman in Michigan wrote a 3-page letter to her city's Public Works Department, arguing that the roads in her neighborhood were too gray. She wanted them repaved in a warmer tone, maybe a tan or light brown, because the gray was making her morning drive feel depressing. The city wrote back and said, road color is determined by the asphalt mix and is not customizable. She responded with paint samples from a home improvement store, circled a shade called Warm Autumn, and asked them to reconsider. They did not reconsider. 69 complaints and not a single one was a joke. Every person on this list was dead serious. Now here is your moment. At least one of these made you think, honestly, that one is kind of fair. Drop the number in the comments. And if you claim none of them, you are lying and we both know it. Hit like, subscribe, and stick around because the next one might be even worse.